Do you want to create a really nice garden space this year, but maybe you went online and looked at the prices of raised beds and went a little, at the prices because they're so expensive and crazy? Well, stick around for this video because I'm going to show you a way that you could create a whole garden of cedar raised beds for less than the price of one of those expensive metal raised beds. And I'll show you how to do that in this video. Now, when you're looking to build raised beds, you're primarily going to be looking at whether you want to build a metal raised bed or a wood raised beds. And there's pros and cons to each. A metal raised bed obviously is going to withstand time a lot longer. It's going to last way longer than a wooden raised bed. However, wooden raised beds are much cheaper, and not all wood is created equal. My first raised beds that I ever made were made with pine and Douglas fir boards that I got from either Lowe's or Home Depot. But they're not as, they won't last as long as cedar. Now, cedar is very sought after for making raised beds because it's naturally resistant to bugs, pests, moisture. It will last really long. But the problem with cedar is it's also very expensive. However, I found a little hack that allowed me to build this whole 20 foot by 20 foot space that I filled with cedar raised beds for a very affordable price. And that is by buying cedar fence, picket fence boards. Now, each of these boards are 6 feet long and approximately 5.5 inches deep. So it's not super deep of a board, but that's okay. But what this raised bed is going to do is just hold in a nice mound of soil in there, and that's all you need for most crops. But anyway, one of those 6 foot boards costs $3.98 for a 6 foot board. That's fairly affordable. So, as I mentioned, I have 18 feet long of raised bed space here, and it took 7 of those boards to construct it. So I believe the total to build 3 raised beds here made of cedar cost $27.86. That's pretty cheap. But I didn't make just one long 18-foot row of raised beds. I made 4 of them. I have 4 long 18-foot rows of cedar raised beds, and that total cost came to $111.44 using the price of those boards. So I said that I needed 7 boards to complete one of these 18-foot rows, and you could see why, because I have 1 board, 2 boards, 3 boards to complete this side, 3 more to complete this side, and then that 7th board was cut in half, so I have a 3-foot section here on the end and a 3-foot section on the other end. And the way that I connected these, as you can see, I have a divider there, which is just a piece of 2x6, which ends up being perfect because 2x6s are actually not 6 inches, they're 5.5 inches, which is the same depth as these boards. So that actually works out well. It's a nice thick board. And what I did is just came in here where these 2 boards come together. I connected 1/2 there and 1/2 there, so they're connected by this. So this actually works out in my favor because I do a lot of square foot gardening stuff in my beds to grow the most in the least amount of space. So this actually divides up these beds for one, and it also does a good job holding the rigidity of these beds so they don't bow out. So the fact that it's a nice thick 2x6 piece, which was just a scrap piece, I didn't buy these. They're a bit weathered scrap pieces. I try to reuse a lot of scrap pieces of wood. Some of them are just 2x4s. I'd prefer the 2x6s, but I used what I had to connect all of these. But as you can see, like, it looks really nice. So what I did to even further extend the life of these cedar raised beds is using a practice called shosugiban, which essentially is just using a propane torch fire to torch the outside of these boards to give them a little bit of a burned look, which looks kind of cool, but it also will further extend the life of them by making them more resistant to moisture and things like that. And hopefully they will just last many years longer. That it's a popular thing that I think is done in China or Japan. I think it was they started doing that out in that side of the world. And actually, I did this last year. I did the Shosugiban method, and it looks like you can barely see it actually anymore. I might need to char these again, but I need to be careful. You can kind of see it a little bit still on the inside of the beds. You can see it's darker, but on the outside of the beds, it actually looks like you can barely see that anymore. But I'm actually glad that the inside of the bed is still looking like that, because that'll help, because that's where all the moist soil is touching all the time. So hopefully this wood will stand the test of time. So now that I've showed you how I made a whole garden of budget-friendly cedar raised beds, let's look at the prices of those fancy, really nice metal raised beds. I'm not knocking how nice they look. I would love to have a whole garden of those, but there's a big price difference, and gardening I don't think should be that expensive. Let's look at the prices of some of these metal raised beds. All right, so now I'm on vegogarden.com looking at some of the Vego Gardens metal raised beds. So let's look at the prices of these Vego Garden raised beds. Now, they have a nice kit. This is a 4-pack of their metal raised garden kits, $674, but you're getting 4 of those raised beds. There they have a 4-pack of these 32-inch tall, $974 for 4 raised beds. That's a lot. But let's look at the price of just one of them. So you got a 17-inch tall 9-in-1 modular raised bed. So that's the cool thing about these, is that you could change the size of them, because there's all different ways that you could arrange the metal pieces to make it whatever size you want, basically. This is $169. It looks like you could probably go to be about 2 foot by 10 foot long. So that's kind of cool. But $169 is more expensive than this entire cedar raised bed of, how many raised beds do I have? I have 4 rows, then there's 3 beds in each one, 3 6-foot beds. So I have a lot more raised beds than just one of these metal ones. But let's go on. You could get a 17-inch tall 10-in-1 modular garden raised bed kit, $214. Still more expensive than what I did. In fact, oh shoot. Here's one, $254.96 for a 32-inch extra tall 9-in-1 modular raised bed kit. Now, that one, it'd be really nice to have a really deep raised bed like that. You could grow some really nice sweet potatoes in there, stuff like that. The problem is the price of one of those at $254. Even if I were to do something different to my garden, I could have doubling what I spent and gotten double the amount of boards to make it taller. And that would come to like $222, which would be less than the cost of this one raised bed from Vego Gardens. So I could make a taller cedar raised bed garden. I would be, 11 inches tall, which maybe I could do in the future. That's one cool thing about making your own cedar raised beds with these boards. If you want to make them taller at some point, you could do that, and it's something that I might do in the future. All right, now I'm on the Birdie's Garden Product website. They sell some really nice looking raised beds. I first saw these raised beds features in what's that guy's channel? He's in Australia. Self-Sufficient Me, I think, is his channel. And he used these, and I thought they're beautiful. His whole garden is full of these metal Birdie's raised beds. But I looked them up. I'm looking them up right now. They are on the expensive side, just like the Vego garden beds. Let's take a look here. One of their 15-inch tall short Birdie's medium raised beds cost $131. So what is the width and length of these? Now these will obviously last forever, these metal raised beds, so something else to consider in the price of these. But let's see the specifications. You could make them up to 6 feet long and 2 feet wide. These could be a 3 foot by 6 foot bed. You could configure this one to be 3 foot by 6 foot, which is basically what one little section of my raised bed is. But This one costs $131 for a 3-foot by 6-foot bed, where I just showed you I did 4 18-foot rows of raised beds for $111. So, something to consider there. I guess if you have the money to put towards a garden and you want it to just last forever and the money's no option, I'd probably go for one of these Vego or Birdie's raised beds. I'd probably actually buy the Birdie's raised beds from Epic Gardening because I really like that guy, Kevin, that runs that channel, and but he sells those now on his channel. But if money is an option, and like it is for me, and it probably is for you if you're watching a video on how to build a garden on a budget, it shouldn't cost hundreds and hundreds of dollars to put up these fancy metal raised beds. Now, if you can afford it, I would probably do it myself if money was no object, but guessing that for a lot of us, like, money is an object. So if you just want to have a really nice raised bed garden and you want to use cedar and make it last a little bit longer, do what I did. Buy the picket fence boards. I got them from, I think it was it Lowe's or Home Depot? I think it was Home Depot that sells them. I'll have to double check. If it was either Lowe's or Home Depot, you can look them up. $3.98 for a 6-foot board. The only work you got to do really is cut off that picket-eared end of the fence board, and then you can construct raised beds with the cedar. And if you do the Shosugiban method, you'll make the cedar boards last even longer, and you'll get way more bang for your buck by doing it that way than buying one of these metal raised beds. Will cost more than an entire garden of these cedar fence board raised beds. So just something to consider. Gardening should be for everybody. You shouldn't be scared away because, like, you can't afford these fancy raised beds. You don't even need to build a raised bed to have a nice garden. You can just do some in-ground gardening, which I do on my market garden. I do some in-ground gardening in our personal garden too, because it's just easier. I mean, I think raised beds are easier because it's easier to access weeds and cultivate and harvest things because it's a little bit further up from the ground. You do have to bend down a little bit more if you're just building the beds permanently in the ground, but it doesn't have to cost anything. My neighbors built a beautiful garden of raised beds for free out of pallets. They made them out of pallets, and it's something that I might want to try in the future too, just building the raised beds out of pallets. That's something you could do. So it doesn't have to be expensive. You don't have to put a ton of money into these raised beds. Just start growing stuff, and it's not too late to start growing your own gardens. If you've been on the fence about starting a garden, now's the time. Get it all. Go to Home Depot, go to Lowe's, find these $3.98 cedar picket fence boards, put together a quick little garden for your family, and fill them up with soil and start growing. And if you're a first-time grower, first-time gardener, check out down below. I have a free PDF for my 400 square foot garden plan, which is what I just showed you. That's right behind me. And I give you a plan to grow food throughout the entire growing season, so you always have something to harvest from your backyard. So if you're interested in cutting down your learning curve and growing stuff without making a lot of the mistakes that I did my first few years of gardening, definitely sign up for our email newsletter. You'll get sent that link for free to our 400 square foot garden plan, and I hope you enjoy that. But anyway, stuck around to the end of this video. Thank you for watching. Hope you found it helpful. Give this video a like if you found it helpful at all, and subscribe to our channel, obviously, if you're new here too. Appreciate that as well. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.